But for Suning, it's been a lot more of these melee mid lane champions for Angel. They can get out, can fight a whole bunch, and I feel like if you have mid lane champions that can fight a ton, it's a lot easier to take control over the early mid game.
And this is why we are so excited about LPL as we come into all these different teams and the teams come out onto the stage, is that you need to be a good team fighter. You mentioned it earlier. You cannot sit on your laurels and assume you can just out-rotate or out-macro, because just before we came onto the show, we were talking about it. LPL teams will just fight you. They will just come at you with all they have. What were you fighting over? Krugs. Doesn't matter. We don't need an excuse. And it does change the dynamic and the pace of the game so significantly.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really glad you brought that up, Penguin, because there's a common misconception or common belief that really just grinds my gears in League analysis, where it's like, well, what were you fighting over? You know, you didn't get an objective after it, you didn't get a tower, you didn't, do all this. It's like, no, sometimes kills are just an objective. You get gold, you get EXP, you take the enemy off of the map, and if you're a team that's super confident that thinks you're going to be winning those fights, go for it. You know, if you feel like you've got a good chance, and that's what so many LPL teams do, is they challenge you in those regards. It's like, yeah, I'm better than you. I can make that happen. I'm going to jump out and I'm going to get that kill. And you know what? I don't care if there's no objective to get afterwards. If you have the ability to execute on your belief that you're stronger than your opponent, go for it. I love it.
Honestly, and like you mentioned, a kill is still an objective, it's still gold. And something that we don't really talk about that much or in that much depth is if you can stagger deaths, if you can create an unfair numbers advantage to yourself, why shouldn't you do it? You should go for it. And it's a very interesting concept. Again, something we were talking about before coming into broadcast is that you look at LCK teams, they assume that their opponent's playing perfectly. They assume that they are going to be making the absolute 100% best play they can possibly make. Whereas in LPL, they tend to look towards like, no, I can force a mistake. I can force you into a position where you're not going to be able to deal with this and get either summoners or your life. And that is what makes LPL just so damn fun to watch.
It's a ton of fun, and it's interesting too, because I think JDG, of all the teams in China last year, like, they were one that coming into the World Championship, like, they were sort of heralded as like, they're the brains, you know, they're the really smart team compared to like the brawn and the raw firepower of a team like Top Esports. And JDG made a ton of just like really smart decisions, either macro or when to take fights, you know, these situations where you're giving up something to take something else on the other side of the map. And the team identity has changed a little bit with roster changes as well, but it's one of those things that's always sort of in the back of my mind, is what is going to be sort of the logic, what is going to be the mind games coming into a game where you have SOFM on one side and JDG on the other.
We'll have to see. We're going to jump into picks and bans. JDG on the blue with Suning on the red for this first game. We can see already Kanavi's Sin banned away by Suning. Does not want that in any way, shape, or form getting into that man's hands.
Shocking, you know, and I do like seeing this Kalista taken away from JDG as well. They've actually really liked to go for some more aggressive bot lanes. You know, usually it's like the Varus, or it's going to be Kalista Alistar, you know, or an Aphelios Thresh, you know, something like that over for JDG. So removing some of these super volatile bot lane options could perhaps open us up to, hey, you know, we saw, the players talking about some mages in the bot lane jumping out of that break. Always fun to see what's cooking in these drafts.
Do you ban Shaco Suning? That is the question right now. They do. We will not get it. So two jungle bans. But like you mentioned, with the Kalista ban and of course the priority that JDG put into towards that bot side, they may look to just solidify a nice, good early bot lane duo before they get to the second round of bans.
Yeah, we can't forget about that Nocturne. It goes unbanned. It's going to get locked in. We're still looking at, I mean, with the Gwen banned away, Viego is up and available if Bin wants to respond with that. Like, these melee champions that can flex into like all three roles on the top side of the map are just so absolutely nasty. Diana, another one that you pretty much know is going to be going into the jungle, but it's these types of picks on the top side that can scrap, that can fight, especially after level 6, that becomes so potent, because in so many LPL games, 8 minutes happens, supports are up on the top side of the map, we're fighting over Rift Herald. So you have to have champions that are super strong at brawling in the topside river, and with the first 3 picks, that's already what we're seeing.
I love the Diana Renekton pickup as well. It's so powerful. In mid or top, doesn't really matter where you want to put that one for the side of Suning. Having that AP and AD duo where they can just get the stun down, get that priority is so good. And JDG, like we said, they like to get that early bot lane priority. They're going to go with the Aphelios and Thresh.
Yeah, as soon as the Kalista gets banned away, it's likely going to be something like that. Now, The interesting thing is, because Ziggs is getting hovered, of course, like, I do really like seeing the Ziggs, and we've seen this pop up a couple times in the LPL where, again, with Ziggs in the bot lane, another AD carry, like the AD carries just chill in the bot lane, farm out waves while the supports roam to mid, roam up for Herald, and these sorts of things. So with the Ziggs getting locked in there, you know, assuming that's going into the bottom lane, you have to at this point. Like, that is sort of the style of game we are likely going to end up getting. You've got a lot of playmaking with a Nocturne over there for JDG towards the top side. You got the Diana and Renekton, just like you mentioned before, but as far as bot lane goes, clear waves, let your supports get up to things across the map.
That's the beauty of the Ziggs pick. You know there's no real kill threat with the Thresh Aphelios when you pick the Ziggs. You're not, unless you really miss position and get caught by a flash hook or something, you're very, very safe to throw out those bouncing bombs. So that does open up the side of SUNING to get out onto the map, get him around those waves, and really work with this Diana. So seeing now what SUNING want to go for, they are looking to ban away the other OPs. Viego, funny enough, has found himself slipping down the priority here as he does get banned away by JDG. And we're starting to see those, again, big early skirmishers being taken out here in the second round.
Yeah, I think what sort of happened is SUNING may have been eyeing the Viego, but then when you see Aphelios Thresh get locked in, if you don't go for, you know, a bot lane pick, you're going to get double banned in that second phase, and I think they really wanted to get the Ziggs going up there in the bot side matchup. And the other thing, too, is like with a pick like Ziggs, if you do get your hands on a Herald, you effectively one-shot towers with Herald plus Satchel Charge. Like, you just need to get like one plate off, and then you're going to take the rest of it with that Satchel. So it can be super effective. Now, expecting roaming support for on, yeah, Nautilus, of course, going to get the job done there, and they can sort of hold on to that Renekton flex pick until they figure out exactly what's going to be going in these solo lanes for JDG.
I have to wait and see. Just as you mentioned, the Rift Herald pick we've seen,
yes,
I think there's
yes,
twice or three times, and oh, you're excited. They're gonna lock it. They are still hovering. We don't talk about hovers here in the LPL. I don't know what you do over in LEC, but we don't talk about hovers. Never mind, go nuts. They've locked it in.
Oh, man. Honestly, look, Toothpaste Zoe, I absolutely love it. Yagao is so good on that champion. His team fighting, absolutely superb. And, you know, there are some dive threats on the other side you have to be concerned about, but I think that when you're playing with a Thresh, a lot of inbuilt synergy there, playing off of hooks, and also one of the things that I think maybe people forget about, Nocturne combos with super long range abilities. Nocturne and then a sleep, like Nocturne presses R, a sleep comes over a wall, like there's no reaction time there whatsoever. And now Kanavi continues on that innovation train with a Kha'Zix pick, which I continue to really like. If we see a very early W evolve here, it plays into this idea where JDG just want to play at range with you. The Aphelios range, the Zoe range, slowing people down with those upgraded spikes. And then when you decide to pull the trigger, that's when the Nocturne goes in. I think it's a really interesting comp here from JDG.
I love this Kha'Zix pick, though. It's such a great adaptation into the Ziggs. We talked about how the Ziggs is very safe to sit in bot lane by himself. Guess what you don't want to be when you have a Kha'Zix on the enemy team? By yourself. You can be just deleted with any kind of a dive whatsoever, and it's just so easy to get him out with the Thresh. I love this adaptation. The last pick coming in for Bin is the Camille. You mentioned he's been going for these more duelist-style champions, more of a split-push carry in his own right, but JDG really coming out now to try and see if they can just put SUNING back in their box with all these different picks.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So when it comes down to these compositions, so much is going to rely on SUNING's top side of the map, I feel like, because like you mentioned, it's 4 dive champs for SUNING. There is not going to be protection for this Ziggs. It's going to be very hard to stay afloat in the fight. So the front line has to be very strong, but also even more than that, coming out of, you know, the early mid game, even or with an advantage for SUNING, you have to be able to instantly go in on these fights because JDG can take things slow, can play for the poke, can, you know, really kite back and wait things out. So when we get down to these later fights, SUNING have to be super decisive with when and where they do go for their engages.
We'll have to see how it all pans out. We will be jumping onto the Rift for Game 1 of this best of 3, the e-commerce war, JD Gaming versus SUNING. Big game for SUNING. They're currently sitting 5-5. They need a win if they want to keep themselves in the hunt for playoffs. And for JDG, they're hunting for higher placements. They're on a good run of form. They get themselves up towards the upper echelons of the LPL. The FBXs, the top esports, and of course the EDGs, which we'll see later on. And I'm just excited to get us back into a game of League of Legends.
Dude, it's so great, isn't it? Looking at, I mean, dude, I usually don't get to see these little cutouts of what people are taking. Unsealed Spellbook for Zoe. You'll love to see that concrete. Yeah, everything looking pretty much as expected But man, we're about to get on to the rift here. And Ocean Drake to start things off, and I kind of like the view here.
The Sentinels of Light shine basking upon the Summoner's Rift as we jump on for our first game. JDG versus SUNING. And it looks like right now there's going to be no level 1 shenanigans. They're just going to go for standards fan out and make sure that no one gets any
All
deep
right, that's
vision.
it. I'm out of here. I signed up for one thing and one thing only. I was expecting blood from level 1. Yeah, no. You know what? It's okay. It's okay. We'll take things a little bit slower because we know it's all going to explode in just a little bit. Really interesting, by the way, Bin starting with the longsword up on the top side of the map, working into the Sunder very quickly. It would appear. Also has Ignite, so a lot of firepower in that lane right off the bat with triple potions too. May see him trading a little bit more frequently up on that top side as opposed to some other options. But once you, like, the drawback of going for a build like this where it's like triple pot plus longsword is the first reset, TP back to the lane, corrupting potion gets refilled. Your potions go away after a one-time use. So we'll see if like Ignite could come into play. His jungler is pathing away from him, but Bin already going to be taking some strong trades up into Zoom. Zoom gets a lot of AD off of the groundwork right there, so he does trade back pretty evenly, and Bin uses Ignite at level 1.
Yeah, using Knight like a defensive summoner spare almost, kind of saying, look, don't go me. I ignited you. You won't get as much healing back onto this. And this is why we're seeing such priority onto the Nocturne. He is so good in that level 1. Why you mentioned the pots as well. You just push. You just have such a good straight line early game to get that minion wave in the pushing an advantageous position. Curious to see now how SUNING are going to be able to deal with this as they look to try and, you know, unlock Bin in that top side.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, too. It looks like Yagao took a W at level 2 there and was able to get a little gore drinker action off of the ground. A little bit curious on that one. You know, usually you see Zoe going E into Q, but against a melee matchup, maybe just wants to pick those up. It's all right. On the bottom side, Loke and Lumao have the push. Again, Ziggs needs some levels before he can really start fighting up against the minion waves. Even with Kha'Zix starting on the bottom side of the map, it doesn't help them out too much inside of the lane. That being said, though, one of the things about mages in the bottom lane that I feel like got explored a lot back in like 2018 when they first got buffed, but you know, hasn't been a huge focus since then, is mages, their full combos have much higher like burst damage than, you know, your typical AD carry would. So when level 6 comes around and you're paired with, you know, one of these supports with a lot of base damage, you actually have pretty immediate kill threat. You know, Nautilus full combo plus Ziggs full combo is probably going to kill or, you know, take exceptionally low many targets, especially that of Felios, and something you do have to respect once the levels start stacking up.
You see both scuttles being taken on either side as both jugglers do end up finishing their path. Diana is going to be a lot faster. Kanavi on the Kha'Zix does recognize this. You saw them go from the bot side clear, takes his wolves immediately into scuttle, and now going back to clear up the top half. And this is just the nature of the beast. You don't really do a lot of damage to the multiple animal camps, if you will. The Krugs and your Raptors and the Wolves are not your friend, but the Grump and the blue buff and red buff are. So you tend to want to lean towards those a little bit more, as we see. Speaking of leaning a little bit more, we did see Kha'Zix roaming up towards this top side, but very difficult to do anything for Kha'Zix, especially when your lane partner doesn't have any innate CC to set you up.
Yeah, I don't know why blue buff is still my friend. I have slain many blue buffs in my time. Not many. They don't last for very long. We don't really get to know each other that much. Just a quick how do you do, and then they're going to be pretty much gone. It does look like Yagao was actually spotted out by that ward, so super high value ward. Sees the reset of Yagao. Yagao not even going to TP back in the lane. Should lose maybe 2-3 of those melee minions before he does return. But Kanavi also spotted pathing down towards his Krug. All this vision, I mean, it's not going to matter too much because mid lane's resetting for SUNING, bot lane's getting pushed all the way in, but it's the little information that can be really important.
That was a great play. Forces the flash out of On, who did eat an Ignite as well. So summoner for summoner, but you'll take the flash for Ignite any day in the bot lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting caught out a little bit right there. And, you know, with this continued bot lane focus or bot lane pressure, you know, this wave has just been constantly pushed in. The Infernum gun makes it so easy for Loken just instantly destroy that minion wave. Kanavi could play for a pretty early Drake. You know, Kha'Zix not too bad at taking those down by himself. Obviously going to be isolated damage that entire time. And you can see SOFM actually walking in to the Dragon Pit, I think, to try and see if that was going to be an idea there of Kanavi.
Good awareness from SOFM, but he's actually going to start it up himself, recognizing that there was a reset from JDG, and it's actually JDG who are roaming their support towards this mid lane. So nice adaptation here from Suning, recognizing they had an opportunity, they had a window to get an advantage, and they're taking it.
Yeah, so that's an example of SOFM just being really aware, because his mid laner reset after Yagao did on mid side, so Angel was actually able to come back off of that, get the push in himself a little bit later, timing the resets of JDG's bot lane once you know that Kanavi isn't down there on the Drake, and also you know what his path was for the last minute, right? You saw him on Raptors, you saw him on go down towards Krugs. If he's not on Drake, he's either reset to his base or he's walked towards the top side of the map. So really smart play by SOFM, and this is exactly what I was talking about when I'm like, this guy gets it. This guy does all the calculations, knows exactly what is going down, and walks away with an easy Drake for it.
Good advantage here for Suning in the early game, getting those dragons stacking early. Infernal Dragon going to be the next one, so we'll either have a Cloud, or Mountain Soul. I'm curious now to see. Renekton's had a weird amount of ban priority in the LPL, has been seen as a very, very powerful pick in our region, and I'm curious to see if Suning can do much with it, because when I think Renekton, I think early game, I think, 2-item spike, getting in on the flank, and if the game goes much later than that, then he kind of falls off a bit.
Yeah, I'd say that, like, in lane, especially against the Zoe, it's pretty hard for Renekton to do much of anything. If he does slice and dice towards you, you're just going to get slept, and then Zoe walks away, puts down some poke. So it's definitely one of those champions that can just sort of survive the lane, even against a lot of ranged characters with the inbuilt healing in the kit. What I'm sort of waiting for is the Herald fight that we, sort of anticipate around that 8 to 10 minute mark, as well as the next dragon spawning up, because that's where Renekton is absolutely insane. When he pops his dominance in these early game fights, where champions just don't have enough levels, enough items yet to burst him out of things, it can be really hard to deal with Renekton that's ulted up inside the river, and he does a surprising amount of AoE damage with that even as well, while he's going to be tanking up and healing up a whole lot of everything else, because he just gets exhausted here. It's not very fun for him, but it will be more fun for him once we get into these skirmishes. But both teams are taking things quite passively for the time being.
I think I must apologize to you, Ender. I did not expect the teams to be as passive as they have been in later. Even the series before this had a little bit more action in the first 10 minutes of the game, but we are still going to see the Rift Herald, and there's one thing I know about LPL teams, that they will fight over the Rift Herald no matter the cost, and we can already see now Suning using the priority in mid lane to push their mid laner and jungler towards this objective.
Look that's a great play. Angel goes back for the reset. He wants to get his item before TPing back in the lane, and SOFM is helping him push the wave before he even gets back. That is great. Zoom, though, he goes flying in.
He goes flying in with the paranoia. No flash burnt, though, so really only loses his own ultimate for it, and feels like he was a little bit too far away for JDG to really make anything work for that, and now that summoner, or that ultimate, is no longer available for the side of JDG should they want to fight for this Herald.
Yeah, it's a bit peculiar. It's a good hook, but a 3v2, JDG don't want that.
Oh, the lollipopping onto Yagao gets him right behind it. He bent the bullet right there. And then you can see JDG with the priority, though, and topside are going to be on this Rift Herald. Here we go. Hook shot into the back of the pit. The Hexacle Dimension stolen. That is going to be Suning with the Rift Herald and the kill. First blood goes over to the Lions in the top side. And they're going to keep pushing in on top of this. They do lose their Nautilus. They are losing the Renekton as here comes the Thresher of Felios. It's a fight on 2 different fronts, 3 different fronts. The Zoe falls, the Nocturne as well, and Hanfong will walk away. It wasn't disastrous for JDG, but Suning still get the objective. Yeah, Suning get the objective. They trade up 1 kill on that as well. It all started off with that really peculiar paranoia going in from Zoom, and then after that, felt like JDG were just fighting on completely different pages. Mid lane looking for a hook when they're outnumbered, while the objective is going down in that topside river. Maybe if they'd moved up, they could get that objective before Suning can even react. Regardless, though, Suning responded great. Hanfeng roamed up from that bottom lane, made sure that he was in the area to help out with the rest of the team. And you can see inside the river, Dominus is going. I think the eyeball opens up too, so a smite, double smite comes down, and then Diana's able to get that even without the smite, actually. Very interesting on that. Yagao at that point, no mana, you're just committing left to try and trade in 1-for-1, but Angel buys so much time for the team, and in those individual fights, because there were 3 fights going on like you're talking about, it was Suning that just had the slight edge. Oh, and another one. Okay.
Sure.
There we go. We come back in, and it is the roaming support of On, exactly what you talked about in Champ Select. This Nautilus getting into that mid lane and finding himself a kill for his mid laner, or for himself, including his mid laner. Nicely done here by Suning, and this is where we start to see SUNING really pick up the pace. They're a fantastic team once they're able to get a lead, as we get a picture-in-picture of the replay.
Yeah, really nicely done there. I mean, just comboing off the CC perfectly. Really good roam timer on that one, and you can see off of the back of that plate, that deep vision on drops down inside JDG's bot side. Jungle gives perfect information of exactly where Kanavi is going to be going. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you do have this Ziggs, especially because the Rift Herald went down, I talked about it earlier, the ability to crush these towers very quickly. We're still before that 14-minute mark, so I want to see that Herald go to the Ziggs lane or Ziggs go to wherever they're going to be dropping the Herald so they can get that one done quick.
I completely agree with you on that one. Dragon is alive, and it's going to be JDG starting that one off. They have got priority in the bot side, as SOFM wants nothing to do with it, heading towards top lane, has a Rift Herald in his back pocket. Should he want to use it in any other lane, they might look to try and maybe use it onto the top lane and get this Camille going. Camille is already 2-0, and where SUNING really shine is when Bin is able to carry his team.
Yeah, no, Bin has been absolutely on fire, looking good after that early fight. And, you know, it's interesting because it looked like for a second SOFM wanted to put the Herald in top lane, but it was a little bit delayed because the Drake went down and already JDG were moving up. So SOFM does SOFM things and just stands still and says, Zoom, no, you're not going to get to your tower. Well, denies him, you know, 4 or 5 minions. It's the small little victories for SOFM, and he gets to use that quick reset one more time before inevitably ending up using this Herald. With looking at the map right now, SOFM coming back on the map, top lane, bot lane, both resetting. This is where I expect to see SOFM team up with Huanfeng rather, and on and get that Herald going. Yeah, you see the TP into the bot side. I'm expecting to see the Herald go down there as well.
And you can see as well, looking at the gold just on either side of the teams, you can see there's about 1,000 gold in the jungle on top for SUNING, but about 800 in favor of JDG in the bot side. So if you're able to mitigate that advantage that this Aphelios has and keep him from getting too far ahead of the curve, then you've got yourself a decent setup if you're on the side of SUNING. But for JDG, they're looking to just keep themselves above water, keep themselves afloat until they know this Aphelios can carry the game.
Yeah, it's such good play from SUNING. I love it, but a TP in from behind, double TP.
It's a double TP, and it's going to be the Nocturne Paranoia coming straight in off it. We've seen it so many times. There is the Super Mega Inferno Bomb going down, but it is Zoom who dies straight away. On goes Golden to keep himself alive. There's so many chakrams going on top with Lucan. Tries to keep himself on top of this. Great Zhonya's from Yagao. Keeps himself safe. But with all that invested from JDG, they don't gain much from it, and they still have the Ziggs available for SUNING, so this tower is pretty much dead to rights.
Yeah, this one's gonna get exploded here. Give me one auto and a satchel charge, and that sucker is gone. Pops it, takes it down. SUNING jump out to a big lead there, and once again, it's JDG opting into a fight where it doesn't feel like they checked off, you know, all their to-do items on their list beforehand. You know, this is a composition that maybe needs to take a little bit slower, play off of a good sleep or off of a good hook. They can't just pop the Paranoia and expect the follow-up to be there. That is what was lacking. Zoom goes all the way in, and then there's nothing really behind it, so SUNING can turn on him very easily. We're gonna see it in this replay once again, because it is a double TP coming in from JDG, but the burst damage doesn't come through. Huanfeng jumps back with that satchel charge, and then the follow-up cannot happen. Loken can't get his auto attacks down. He's just got to try and run away and kite back as the rest of SUNING goes on deep.
And again, just great reactions from SUNING, knowing that they could go and take that fight in Rift Herald, recognizing that, yes, they probably do have their summoners available for top and mid, but we are still stronger right now. And good moves from Huanfeng to keep himself safe while still putting down that massive amount of damage. And now SUNING, 3,000 gold lead, actually nearly, you know, coming up to a 3,500 gold lead at the 15-minute mark. And I want to kind of mention how, you know, the early bird gets the worm is what we called about in JDG's wins and against IG, and Kanavi's been muted. He hasn't done anything on this Kha'Zix.
Yeah, you know, it is a little bit odd because it does seem like Kha'Zix is one of those champions where it's harder to find those immediate ganks. You know, he does have the mobility, but, you know, unless you have lanes that you can really play off of very easily, it's hard to lock people down and get kills. You know, it's not the same early impact of something like a Lee Sin, so because he wasn't really trying to find plays, because SOFM just is clearing faster on the Diana, felt like Kanavi didn't really have too many options to finding these plays, and when we got into the fights, that's where JDG was starting to struggle. Now, as far far as innovation goes, I do love seeing, especially in pro play, the Umbral Glaive Rush on lethality junglers. You know, forgoing a mythic item, that Umbral Glaive passive is honestly just completely insane, especially in pro play for taking out wards early on. So I do like seeing that come through, especially if, and we will have to wait until we can pan over to him and see what he's upgraded. But I do like that kind of idea when you're playing more of a pick comp, playing off of Thresh Hook, playing off of Zoe Bubbles, to be able to delete vision off the map.
Yeah, I do believe it was the Q he leveled up first, so he's got that evolution going for him as he's got those massive claws on the Kazakhs. And not only that, you mentioned the Umbral Glaive, and what I love about it as well is that the small little bonus passive you get when you build it on something like Kazakhs, who does get extra damage when he's unseen. He does get that little bit of extra, you know, burst coming into it. So if he knows he's not on a ward, he's going to have a little bit more to offer in these team fights.
Yeah, there's the mind games you can play with that passive and knowing when you're not there or whatnot. You can see another Herald, another Sassel charge, and the turret is gone right before the Drake spawns too, so Suning can take a lot of space inside the river. There is a control ward right outside that red buff that can be a little bit problematic for Suning trying to find picks over that wall if they don't quite have the vision, but you can see Suning not even feeling that stressed about it. You know, they reset Bin and Angel, both solo laners, while they can just push out mid with their Ziggs, and SOFM can solo the Drake. JDG want no part of a fight. They've been bitten too many times to want to fight back.
Honestly, I think this is just smart from Suning, recognizing we have the teleport advantages. We know we can get our laners into a position that you might not have swept away. You might not know it might be there. So I think it's good from JDG to just take the L on that one. You're not on soul point just yet. You've got a bit of time before that, and you're still scaling up with the Aphelios. Has 1.5 items, so this Trouble Bubble lands. Good hook, but there's the flash hook. The paranoia continues on underneath the tower. He's going to commit his ult along with the Moonlight Vigil. What is still alive? How does he get it? And no, he does not. Yagao has to commit his actual flash to make sure that that one was gotten for the side of JDG, but that was so close to being disastrous.
That is like the amount they put into killing that Nautilus, and then it almost resulted with him surviving. You know, flash from the Zoe, flash from the Thresh, the ultimate from Zoom too. Like, it's just crazy that On was able to stay afloat for that long. Yagao at the end says, no, I've had about enough of it, and flashes forward to finalize that kill. But you can sort of see the struggle of this game for JDG just in that play. It's playing off of a good bubble again. This is how JDG need to look for their fights, look for their picks. It's off of those critical skill shots, then Zoom can go in. But even then, man, I guess everyone's backing away with the Ziggs AoE flying on down here. They all thought they were going to get the kill, needed that extra assist there. I believe the Zoe W doing some damage off of that. May have been an auto attack. It's a little blurry for me, but that's fine. Yagao gets the kill in the end.
It's all good. We're trying our best. I believe it was just an auto attack with the extra little bit of distance gained from the and damage gained from the ultimate popping up out of the puddle jump. As we now see Suning, after losing that kill, they don't really feel too sore about it. Like you said, a lot invested from JDG just to make it work, let alone make it be, you know, profitable as such. And we're now looking towards, you know, 20 minutes or 18 and a half, 20 minutes only around the corner. It's still only a 3,000 gold lead for Suning, so still something that they can be very proud of. But this Aphelios is starting to pick up items. This Aphelios is going to pick up this red buff, probably pick up this mid wave, and go back and pick up that second item.
Yeah, not much space on the map, right? That's going to be a big problem for JDG as they lose their next outer tower, right? So now their jungle camps are going to become a little bit forfeit. That can be a little bit problematic for Kanavi, even for your carries, right? Because you look at it, Loken is probably at this point in the game going to be picking up a lot of jungle camps from the JDG jungle. So if Suning are able to, you know, invest deep vision, start stealing away camps, pepper in some of those ideas, well, that means either Kanavi is losing out big or Loken is losing out big. Because I think JDG, if they realize they're behind, you need to put a whole lot into Loken here, because that Aphelios with, you know, the 200 collective years, that's the type of champion that can turn around fights even when you are playing from a gold deficit.
I love that we got to see the pan over the vision in the top side here from the side of Suning. You see Kanavi just being like, ooh, a ward, as he gets the Umbral Glaive passive. And just thank you, gets a hit. Of course, something that we don't really talk about, your Umbral Glaive does give you that extra 3 hits into 1, so you can take it away very, very quickly. It's just pretty standard one. It's actually gone with the Edge of Night as a second item, so still foregoing that early mythic and really kind of putting himself to say, I just need to find someone, get on top of them, and stay on top of them.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I'm not a full-on believer in delaying your mythic this long. I think that, A, with the passive you can get, and also, you know, Duskblade's pretty good, you know, pretty strong item. I like it a lot.
In SFM we trust, you know, that's the way I put it. In SOFM we trust. He has a plan for all of us, Ender.
You know what? I'll remain open to it. See exactly what he has got in store right now. You know, it's 3,500 gold down. That's not necessarily the end of the world for JDG, but when you look at sort of compositionally how these fights play out, again, team fights are much more conditional for JDG on those early skill shots, like I've said probably a million times in this cast, where as Suning, you know, you've got insane mobility with the Camille. You've got a not, like, it's so easy to start fights on your own terms. So JDG being at a gold deficit have to be playing really excellently around these fights. And, you know, the third Drake of the game is coming up in a minute's time for Suning. So all these things have to be running in their mind. Like, can you get the good fight there? Well, if not, then you're working against Soul Point. That can be really, really tough. You have to get it the next time around. So JDG really need to figure out, I feel like, vision around this Drake and then get, you know, lock down their team fighting, because they've had a couple of really weird ones where Zoom has just gone in way too early and they need to be much more coordinated when they press their go buttons.
Well, just over 30 seconds as those dragon spawns. All summoners available. Yagao just about missing his flash, but should have it relatively soon on as well. So they lost theirs roughly at the same time. In about 20 seconds or so, they should have it back. But curious to see now with this Aphelios. Loken did not take the cleanse, did take the heal and the flash. And with two items, can do some decent damage in these fights. To be curious now as well, we've seen a lot in the LPL. Aphelios used as almost a initiator, using that Moonlight Vigil with the Gravitum to lock down multiple members. That could be an avenue here for JDG to get into this pit.
Playing over this wall. This is exactly where Zoe wants to be. Lands one skill shot, but doesn't get the damage down. And now your position is sort of known. It can be really tough. You have to play around these big, long cooldowns. And the way Suning are playing, they're not giving easy bubbles over to Yagao.
No, the Dominus has been popped, so you have to respect that. There's a hook. The hook from On does not land onto terrain, and he's going to have to flash himself away. So there's his dragon gone down. Suning will pick himself up Soul Point.
What?
Zoom goes in, but nobody's there to follow up, and he gets obliterated. Now Suning can keep running forward because they've wasted very little.
How does On get away with it again? You know, this time he doesn't even die, gets away with just a sliver of HP. You love to see it. The Drake goes to Suning as well, and we are seeing the problems of JDG's comp here. Zoom goes in, there is no follow-up whatsoever. Kanavi does not want to be diving in with the rest of the squad, and Suning just sort of laugh in their faces. They shut down Zoom and get On out to safety.
I just feel so tentative and really unsure from JDG. They didn't know what quite direction they wanted to take that fight, and they had them all committed onto On, but then didn't, because you can see here in the replay, they almost get him, but then they commit the paranoia onto the back end.
Yeah, and you can't underestimate the power of Zig zoning tools, right? You know, like he drops the bombs down onto the ground, zoning people away. His ultimate, like, it's a long animation. It doesn't always land and deal damage, but it makes sure you step backwards, right? So even like JDG, it's already hard for their champions to sort of step up into the thick of things, back up a Nocturne that goes flying in so deep. When you have to work past all those AoEs, all the damage, all the CC, it becomes even that much harder to get that follow-up coming in.
For Suning, you're now on Mountain Soul Point. This is fantastic, especially when you're looking at things like Kha'Zix, Nocturne, and, you know, the Aphelios and Zoe, things that want to burst you out. You have that little bit of extra safety, that little extra shield on you to make sure that you are keeping yourself alive. And we can see already with On, he's keeping himself alive without it. So he's doing a fantastic job as a support right now for Suning. And Morello's picked up here for Juan Fong alongside that Liandry's Torment, working towards that Rabadon's Death Cap. But very important to recognize, the IE will be available. So 3-item Aphelios for Loken will be there as Kanavi gets himself almost caught out in the jungle. But 3-item Aphelios will be available for JDG if they can get a fight around the next Drake.
Yeah, Kanavi does look like he evolved the spikes too. So again, using the spikes, the empowered slow on that, set up for some more of these critical abilities to end up landing. One other thing is, you know, we've seen Suning sort of, you know, divide up into a 1-3-1 a couple of times with the Angel and Bin picking up side lanes. That's one situation where maybe this Nocturne ult can become a little bit more powerful. You know, when Zoom is jumping into even-numbered fights, it's looked real bad. You don't want to see that anymore until JDG have been able to layer down a whole lot of poke. But if it is collapsing onto a side lane, or if it is, you know, collapsing onto a 3-man stack of Suning, then it could look a little bit better. But even then, Suning are still working with 3 TPs on their side to make sure that any odd-numbered fight can become even real quick.
And even looking at Zoom on this Nocturne, that was first pick priority, 0, 3, and 1, not having the impact that he would like. And as I say that, Angel having much more of an impact onto Lumao, and there's a hell of a lot of people jumping in onto this Baron pit. Even the 6th man of Baron is being added in for JDG, but they still can't take him down. He's on 2 items and feeling fine, and they back themselves away. The Super Mega Inferno Bomb comes down to zone everybody away, and now SUNING have the inside track to mid lane tier 2 and maybe even tier 3.
You know, JDG calculated a lot of different ways that Angel could try to outplay him there, but I don't think they thought he'd be flashing backwards into the Baron pit to get towards his team. SUNING, you rightly said it, they got a track on mid lane. This tower is going down oh so easy. It's only a 3,000 gold lead for SUNING, but this game feels completely within their control.
3.5 as that second turret in the mid lane goes down. 1 minute 20 till that dragon spawns. Aphelios now with 3 items. You have a win condition, but for the way SUNING are playing right now, as I say that, JDG recognize the backs and they can go straight for this. They're going to fade out all the TPs.
Yeah, TP's coming in from 1 point. I mean, this is going down so fast they don't have vision. JDG might just have it.
They have the perfect guns for it there for a second. They're going to go into it, and that is taken away. Daylight robbery for JDG. They get themselves the Baron. They're going to be able to reset and get themselves back on the map for this sole point. Beautifully done there by JDG.
SUNING cannot be happy about that one. Again, the game completely in their control. What does it take for JDG to get back into it? A brilliant map decision. Like, wait a second, resets coming through from SUNING. No wards in the pit. We just run straight in there and take that under SUNING's nose. Now, still, with Drake coming up in 30 seconds, this is another fight that JDG must go for. They got the Baron for no fight. That's something that looks good for them. Can it be enough going into the 5v5, especially because SUNING are the first ones into the river, and Bin and SOFM, they're stepping up real far.
Zoom, he's going to find himself in a whole lot of hurt. He's getting jumped on by the Hextech Ultimatum, trying to keep himself alive, but with no Sterex, he is dead to rights. But while that's been happening, we can see now JDG using this time with the numbers advantage to push themselves into mid lane. Now, JDG, you're a man down. No teleport for Zoom either, so important to know that even when he spawns, he's not going to be instantly back into this pit. And you can see already SOFM and Bin already on this objective.
Yeah, best case here for Kanavi, it's going to be a steal. Doesn't even have a ward to place down. They don't have any wards. Not even Lumao has anything, so Yagao's jumping into the pit to try and get vision for his team, snapping back there too. It's a great pull away, and you know what, SUNING do an excellent job of securing that objective. Well done by them, especially SOFM and Bin, finding that opportunity, seeing that window where they can attack Zoom in a side lane.
It's great recognition as well. The Anathema's changed, which instead of going for the Sterex, he went for in this, second item for the Nocturne to try and keep himself alive in these fights. It was still on cooldown. He didn't have access to it to try and keep himself alive. So they recognize that. They go absolutely ham on him. And they just find themselves the Mountain Soul. Now, even though you got this Baron, great reaction from JDG as they saw the backs, they're still very much in this hole.
It's so interesting because it hasn't looked difficult at all for SUNING, right? The entire game has just been smooth, like lathered up in coconut oil smooth, right? It's easy. It's easy breezy for SUNING, just not really feeling all that challenged, even though JDG are keeping it close monetarily. I think compositionally, it's just really hard for JDG to execute here without playing from an advantage, because you can see the theory of if JDG have a lead coming out of the laning phase and they're sieging with Zoe, Aphelios, the spike rack on a Kha'Zix too, it can be really hard to deal with. They've got the global advantage. They can attack side lanes easily with a Nocturne, but as soon as they don't have control on the map, it is just so hard for them to step forward with any amount of confidence whatsoever.
Now, Andrew, I know you mentioned earlier that you're not a fan about delaying your Mythic this long, but how about not building a Mythic? How does that fill out into the Kha'Zix one? Because he's gone for the Serpent Fangs. He is yet to pick up his Mythic item.
You know what? My man is just, he's trying things out here, and I like it. I mean, to be fair, there are quite a lot of shields. There are quite a lot of shields. Diana, Nautilus, you got, Camille as well. Sure, why not?
The Mountain Soul.
You know what? There's the Mountain Soul. There's double Sterex gauges on, honestly, not a bad item. Not a bad item at all for Kanavi. I do still feel like Duskblade gives a whole lot of value, but I think if you're looking at sort of situationally within a game like this, there is a whole lot to be gained from taking Serpent's Fang.
Definitely, but I feel like the Mythic should have come in a little sooner. But we'll see if it does end up working out, because again, you know, we talked about how Kanavi in the first 15 minutes of the game was 0-1 and 0. Coming up to twice that amount of time, at 30 minutes, he's still 0-1 and 0. He really hasn't had the impact that we know and love from this man, and it's just so difficult for him because there's no real reason for anyone on the side of Suning to be isolated without any kind of support. As I say that, Bin goes in. We're going to try and use the Mega Inferno Bomb and the TP. The Paranoia is coming in. The Hextech Ultimatum keeps Yagao in place as he goes forward with the portal jump, but gets taken down immediately. It's a big Moonlight Vigil right across everybody on the top of Suning, and now they're trying to run away. The Aphelios is not afraid and flashes forward to pick up some more kills. They will lose the tower, but can JDG keep pushing for more?
Loken keeping JDG on life support. They're giving them a chance. I mean, we said it, right? Aphelios is the one champion that could maybe carry, and Kanavi, as we say that, he gets jumped on. Maybe has something to say about it.
They do have a little bit. Great hook. It's onto the exact target you want. It's onto Huanfeng, who has to get him out. He flashes away. It is Zoom who dies. They don't want to put in the Loken, who's frontlining right now. He's pushing forward. Like you said, this team is on his back. And they do end up disengaging. Kanavi did survive, but I feel like JDG can't take any more.
I mean, there was so much nuance in that fight, right? Great hook from Lumao, Loken flashing forward to make sure he can follow up on it, and it's been going super deep. I mean, at this point, I can hardly blame Suning for wanting to dive between these two towers, because it should be good. Yagao doesn't really have much to fire back here. The whole team is ready to show up, but that Moonlight Vigil, oh my word, the Infernum doing so much damage, and he's also got Red Gun as well, so off this hook, he's flashing, he's like, yeah, I want it all, man. Red, White Gun with the Crescendum there, oh my gosh, you do so much damage, but you're gonna see in this extended fight the power of the Ziggs, especially inside the jungle. Once JDG feel like they have their footing underneath them, they try to push forward, but as soon as, you know, the minefield goes down, you can't really continue to step through that. This is what I'm talking about right here, right? Like, Loken can't step up and deal any damage. He's just a sitting duck. All of a sudden, there's a hook coming in, and he has to use everything to get away.
Now, Wit's End finished up for Loken, but important to note, with 10 seconds till this Baron spawns, no flash, no heal, no flash from Lumao. Basically, everyone except Yagao does not have a flash, but I can't really say it's much better for Suning. So, a lot of big, you know, disengage and engage tools no longer available for either of these sides, and this Aphelios is online. Not only that, but he has the stopwatch. That could be pivotal as we come into this fight, but look at the SOFM and Bin trying to look for something. The Paranoid has been used, and he goes straight in on top of it. They use the Zonyas though to try and bait him out just a little bit. Kanavi can't really get him in, but Bin doesn't feel afraid. Goes golden. The Moonlight Vigils on top of the two exact people you want. Yagao and Loken are dead, and Suning will march on to take the base.
Complete destruction there from Suning. They're not even done. They want to chase down, finish off all the last kills. Kanavi's trying to do his best to clear the minion wave, but there is nothing you can do, my friend. Suning on an absolute tear, jumping towards the base of JDG.
It was all too little, too late from JDG. They were too tunneled on getting their Aphelios stacking up to his very big Aphelios items, but it just wasn't enough. They're too far in the hole. Suning will take the advantage in this series and go 1-0 up in this best of 3.
Honestly, a great start to the night for Suning, and I think JDG are going to want to change a lot coming into this next game. I think on paper they got a lot of champions that they're very proficient at, but they didn't quite have that one thing to bind it all together. We saw a lot of disconnect between Zoom and the rest of his team, and I think with some easier champions to come in with, follow up on, it's going to be a very different look for JDG. At the same time though, Suning, so much to be happy with. The way they played the map within those fights as well. This is what we wanted to see from them.